is the companies have to, let's say companies in terms of the majority of employees, have to have complete buy-in with regards to digital transformation for order for digital transformation to be successful. In other words, agree, accept that this is the right plan for them, the right direction for them to utilize digital transformation, and we have to have complete buy-in from the organization. Manasi, we'll start with you first.
Agree. So the trickle effect from why it is important to undergo digital transformation has to go from bottom up all throughout. So there has to be a complete buy-in from the workforce, from the management. Everybody has to be in sync for this to really work.
Got it. Dan, your response?
A lot of it doesn't work because there's a lack of humility, right? Once you've been a victim of your own success, it's too easy to buy into what you've been telling yourself. I look at someone like Sears, right? Sears, you know, your largest retailer that's now basically become an artifact because they weren't aware and paying attention to how consumerism was changing, right? And the things that were going on. I'll never forget when I took my first executive job in Chicago with Ameritech. This is right when dial-up internet starting. And the company that I was running the internet company for was owned by the Yellow Page company for Ameritech. And I remember telling the Yellow Page executives that I was about to put them out of business. Now, you probably all don't remember this, but I'm an old man. There was a time when the Yellow Pages was the most profitable part of the phone companies, and they loved it. It was a multi-billion-dollar business. It was generating 80% profit margins. It was great because everyone had to use the Yellow Pages. And when I started telling them that's not the case, people are just throwing these things away now. That's, you know, you're about to be gone. They didn't want to hear it and they didn't believe it because they had been successful for so long. So I think that's a big problem with established institutions and saying this is the way that we've always done it. This has been successful. We know people. Well, the world has changed. And I think that it's hard when you've been successful to adapt to that.
Okay, the next question I have is sort of like a two-part question. Well, it is two questions, but they all they relate to one another. And I'll start with Manasi. How does a firm get started with the process of digital transformation if they don't have a process already?
The firm is a small, medium, or a large-size organization. I think the rules are fairly the same across all kinds of organization. The first thing that needs to happen is they need to create a digital culture. They need to have a company-wide buy-in and prepare the workforce for the transformation. We need to define the strategy and the KPIs and the metrics to measure these KPIs timely from time to time. And I don't think companies should even try and build everything in-house. Find partners. There are enough and more partners. Find these partners and to help them accelerate this journey and come up to speed. And lastly, take benefit of accessing the infrastructure and the resources that are already present instead of investing in newer resources at this point if there are limited resources available.
Dan, your response to that?
I think it starts with the humility that, oh crap, we're in a situation where our customers and our employees are now in a much more powerful position of driving what we do than ever before. And so we've got to start finding out where they're talking to each other and listen to what they're saying. And that's not an easy thing for companies to do, right? It may take you out of your paradigm to say, okay, let me go see all the crap they're saying about me on Twitter or in Facebook or in these message groups or on Reddit. And honestly, most executives haven't grown up in that world. And that's where the outside help comes in. You've got to find people that have a different perspective than you just to challenge your thinking. Because if you're surrounded by an executive team where you're all about the same age and you've had the similar experience coming up, then it's hard for you to see what's changed. And so I'm not talking about, you know, teams of consultants, but I'm definitely talking about teams of people that are in a different generation that see the world differently, who can challenge your thinking and show you something different. And I think that's really where it begins. Because once you have that humility, you can start to adapt. Okay, let's recognize things have changed. Let's find out where we can adapt to integrate differently, to talk to our consumers differently, and to look at our employees differently and the value that they bring and what we're able to give them.
Okay, and the second part of that two-part question is, what are the key resources or competencies necessary to ensure that the process or framework is sustainable? Manasi, we'll start with you first on that question.
Digital transformation is not a one-time process. Organizations have to keep being on top of their game all the time. So if the efforts, if they have to make sustainable efforts, what they need to do is continuously identify and measure these metrics and in the areas of transformation. They also need to keep trying new and more relevant technologies and adopt a strategy which is flexible and there is room for iterations. That's the beauty of digital. So, you know, if something doesn't work, it's quickly possible to change and adapt and iterate the strategy and the roadmap.
Dan, your response?
Taking it out of the buzzword digital transformation and then looking at the cultural change that it is. You know, having been a C-suite executive, it's so easy to sit in the corporate boardroom in the tower and say, here's the direction that we're going. It's much harder to dig into the details and say, let me go learn from my customers, let me go learn from my employees that are dealing with them on a daily basis, and let me find out the things I don't know. So I think that cultural shift starts with get out of the tower, go learn, and then start adapting and find out from those that have been living it how they do it, right? It's very much changed our paradigm. Even look at education, right? Education is going through a massive paradigm transformation because of things like COVID and digital transformation, and say, okay, let's listen to students, let's listen to employers, let's figure out how we adapt to this new world, because our traditional institutions are challenged now. We've got new things that we've got to learn how to do. But I think that cultural shift really starts by recognizing, okay, I can't call the direction of the play from my corporate boardroom anymore. I've got to get out and I've got to go find out what's going on in a different area.
And here's another question I want to add, and I think it kind of brings up a good point here in case one wants to, you know, be a consultant in this space and they want to be able to, you know, get the process started for a client who's interested in doing digital transformation. So this would be a scenario. So say if you're going in to visit the client for your first couple of meetings, right? And what would you say, what would it be the first three things that you would say or advise your client to do during those first couple of meetings?
It would be a diligence across all the social media platforms on what's being said about that company and their products. I'm going to go to Reddit, I'm going to go to Glassdoor, I'm going to go everywhere that someone's discussing, either as an employee, as a consumer, someone doing a review, and I'm going to compile all of that to say, let me not only show you trending data, but let me give you specific examples of things that people are saying. Here's how it's easy to do business with you, here's how it's hard, here's what I enjoy, here's what I like about working here. Because usually that's the first wake-up call. Let's see where the need is based upon what all those who interact with your brand are saying. And then from there, we can begin. The key there is that you've got to listen to everything, right? I remember having discussions where people would tell me, hey, I'd read some things on Glassdoor saying, hey, there's an issue here. Yeah, those are just the few people, because most people aren't going to say anything. The only people that are going to say something are people that really like your service or really hate your service. And so you can just ignore it. And we know that's not true. That's just wrong, right? You got to listen to both. And then you got to put a filter on and saying, okay, what do I want to find is relevant? But I'm not going to ignore it. So whether it's an outlier or not, I want to hear it, and then I can make a judgment.
I'd like to start with is to understand the organization's capabilities as to what is currently possible with them, the kind of data they have, resources they have, etc. And basis that, understand the objectives and take it from there on. So understand the objectives, set down the KPIs, and then figure out what you want to do, and most importantly, create a roadmap.